Welcome, everybody. Really appreciate you joining today. My name is Josh Minthorn here with Accelino, and today we're going to be talking about how being cloud native and cloud native technologies can be used to really unlock business value and drive innovation and growth in an organization. So to start with, what I want to do is just quickly introduce myself. I'm a director here at Accelino, and really my role consists of working very closely with our clients to really understand challenges and goals when it comes to combining business value and technology so that we can help accelerate the delivery of a solution. So today what we're going to talk about is, again, unlocking business value with cloud native technology. We're going to talk about the what and the why, and then how do you empower and drive that cloud native, I'm going to call it mindset. You're going to hear me talk about that. And then how does that impact being able to deliver? And then what we'll do is we'll talk about how do you prepare and how do you get started. So moving right along, we've seen a big disruption, a digital disruption, and as you can see, what we're seeing is that with cloud native technology and everything that goes with that, it's really become a catalyst of digital disruption. And it's not just about change. What it's really doing is it's really brought a new era of innovation, and it's become a force for creating business value. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And that's the major premise of what this is about. This isn't about just adopting new technologies. What this is about is how do we leverage these technologies to be able to, again, drive business value in that growth. So when we think about driving increased value with being cloud native, we need to think about what the ultimate goal is. And the ultimate goal is that we want to decrease the cost of performance. However you measure that, right? There's always going to be some cost of per performance unit. And so what we want to do is over time, we want to drive that down. Now, it's not just about driving down costs. What it is we need to see that there's a greater intended benefit. And what we want is added value. So as you can see with what I'm showing here now, is that over time, as we work to decrease the cost of performance, what we also want to do is we want to have added value. And what we get from that is improved business and IT performance. And at the same time, as you can see that as we've added that value, that gap between value and the cost per performance is actually an increase in the quality of service. Now that takes on a lot of different attributes. It could be providing something faster to customers, a better customer experience. It could just be that you have better resiliency. That can be critically important around if you have a business that needs to scale because there's seasonal upticks in some sort of purchasing traffic. It also includes security and things like that. As we continue to grow in a digital economy, security is becoming ever increasing more important as part of a business's capability to operate. So thinking through that, right, let's take a step back and let's define really what we want out of cloud native technologies. It's about providing enormous impact to the business, and really and truly what we want, the ultimate outcome is the ability to deliver an idea to customers quickly and efficiently. And that's really what this is about. So how do you have new ideas and new capabilities within a business, and how do you get that out to a customer as quickly as possible? I do want to say that a customer, in our experience, can be an end user that could be outside of your organization, but it could also be someone that is internal to the organization. A lot of customers that we work with, they will develop and need these capabilities because they're providing a service internally to other business units. So in that case, you still have a customer. So thinking through that, a couple of things. How do you win at being cloud native? To win, there's primary key focus is the organizations that unlock the benefit of cloud technology are being able to deliver innovative results and solutions faster with that increased agility while reducing the IT costs. And you saw that before when we talked about those curves. And the other part too is that there's no one size fits all. Okay, everybody's processes are different. Everybody's systems are different. The technologies, the security concerns, and everything. And because of that, that's why there isn't just a one size fits all. It needs to be, when you do this cloud native journey, it's going to be unique to you in the priorities that you have in your systems and teams and everything. And that's something that's very, very important because, again, trying to fit something into a model that everybody uses typically doesn't always work, especially in this case. Now, there's another big part of that, which goes with that no one size fits all, which is commitment and navigation. What this is about is embracing change. And it's not just change for change's sake. What it's about is really that cloud native mindset and understanding that technology is going to be very critical to success. And so how do we get commitment across the groups? How do we navigate this change, as the different groups and teams and organizations within an enterprise? And so when we think about all of that, right, so this means is that when you start to look at unlocking the benefits from cloud native technology, you need a different approach. And again, that's tailored to you. And that's going to mean that you may have to, again, reorganize people and processes, potentially technology decisions, and a lot of other things that go with that. And that's how you're going to have to do things to really be able to maximize the results of being cloud native. Now, I think it's also very important when we think about this because this isn't just a technology fad. This really is changing operating models within businesses, and I think there's a testament to that, to the benefits of that. A lot of times we think of cloud native, we're thinking of the cloud. We're not specifically here talking about a particular cloud provider because now with the drive and innovation of cloud native technologies, you can actually do that without having to be in a public cloud provider. But I think the key thing is the benefits of what you would typically get from a cloud provider. When embraced properly, have been so vast that roughly 92% of enterprises are looking to leverage either the cloud or the cloud native technologies. And it's a question of where do they get started because, again, the overall goal is how do we find significant savings from the reduced overhead of, the resources required to run and develop applications, but then the time that, that opportunity cost that it takes to go from an idea out to an end customer. And one of the things too is that because cloud native technology has become so prevalent, I would say that how you leverage it is also going to be critically important. And the old adage goes now that everybody's trying to use cloud native technology, it doesn't have quite as a competitive advantage as it used to. Because now everybody is starting to embrace those capabilities. So the question again is going to be, how is it going to work for your organization? How are you going to unlock that new value and the new potential that it comes with? So the next part we want to talk about is, how do you really empower being cloud native? And so I want to talk about real quick. We all heard about the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. I've put up here their definition, enabling an organization to build and run scalable applications in modern dynamic environments such as public, private, and hybrid clouds. That's, to me, we get that. However, that's very technical. I think the big thing there is that what I put there is we want to enable businesses to adapt to marketplace events with more agility and deliver innovation faster. That is what we want, and that's why then the cloud native definition fits into that. Because honestly, just running more scalable applications and things like that is great. Yep, you can save costs and things of the like. But again, if you go and do that, what's now what? Where's the value to the business from just doing that? And I think one of the things to remember here too is that when we think about embracing and empowering the cloud native mindset, there's a number of things that need to be done. One is we've got to work to chain together various technologies, processes, and services that are unique to you. Maybe that's existing, maybe that's going to be building or enhancing new ones. And we need to always do that with the focus on an outcome that has some actual business value. And that's the big part here. The focus is for us working with customers is that it's not just a change in technology, a change in architecture. It needs to really and truly be linked to how does this deliver additional business value. So thinking through that, then the question is, okay, so we want to empower. What do we need to focus on? What are the things that we're expected to get out of this? Now, we've all heard about, okay, we want to obviously decrease our time to market. We want to decrease costs. We want to have extensibility and security. But what does that mean when we think about it from the cloud native aspect? So thinking through that with the decreased time to market, really, when thinking through it, you kind of have to do this internal assessment and think, okay, do we spend a significant portion of time and effort, managing, let's say, your infrastructure and everything that goes with that, provisioning, configuring, all the resources, and everything that it takes to really just keep that operational. And usually when that's being done, there's a traditional, division of labor between the different maybe IT operations teams and the business teams and the development teams. So you kind of got these silos that we're all familiar with. And so what typically happens is, it doesn't take long to necessarily implement something per se. What is typically happening is that there's a lot of decision points that have to be made. And due to those decision points and the complexity that goes with that, and how a lot of times decision points are not interconnected at all, you see an increase in the time that it takes, and therefore it takes longer to get out to end customers. So how does that change when we're looking at cloud native based solutions? Well, the goal there is looking at those decision points. What can be automated? Where can we take some of those manual decision points out and rinse and repeat? And then how do we also think about being able to very quickly spin up, from a compute standpoint, from whatever is needed from a technology standpoint, very quickly to support changes in business needs, right? Let's say, for instance, want to roll out a new product or capability. Usually there's a timeline that's based on market demand, and you want to be able to meet that. And you don't want to be slowed down by the time it takes to make some of these other fundamental decisions around how that's going to be run and operated. What you really want to do is focus on how are you going to actually build and deliver the value quickly. And so we think about, how do we scale, and also how do we just make sure, again, going back to the original piece in this, is increasing value, but also increasing the quality of the service at the same time while we reduce costs. And the other part too around this is, especially when we think about businesses that have seasonal changes, whether they scale up, because of a certain day of the week, a certain month of the year, a certain season, whatever it may be, you have those peak times, those peak purchasing times, and you need to make sure that there's the best customer experience possible. So how can you do that without a lot of manual intervention, but also making sure that you're not absorbing the cost of being able to run at that high throughput throughout an entire year, because that is just not an optimal use of dollars and budget. And and I think around that, what you're really trying to do is maintain an equilibrium with all the teams that are involved, the culture, the technology, and the business piece. And at the end of the day, again, it goes back to how do you ship things faster? How do you boost innovation? How do you increase that agility? Because that's going to be key to be able to adjust to the market. Now, I talked a little bit about lowering costs. So couple of numbers that we have seen is that when we look at where does IT budget go, a lot of times approximately 80% is spent just keeping the lights on. So again, 80% of the budget approximately is spent keeping the lights on. So then the question is, what if we were able to reduce the keeping the lights on expense and took those savings and was then able to invest in technologies and other things like training, stuff like that, that actually helps move an organization forward. That's a really big change in where money is being spent and what you're getting out of it. The other part too, I talked a little bit about, kind of things being idle. Same thing there. What if we could optimize, technologies that are being used so that we get significant savings there, and then again, you take those savings and now you can invest in things that help move the business forward. And that's, again, really what cloud native is it helps drive. It gives you more what we call elastic resources. And it gives you things that allow you to scale automatically with demand, going back to those bursts of traffic based on some sort of event. And then really at the end of the day, what this does is it moves from costly, always on infrastructure and directs those savings towards new feature development. And then I think with that, there's also indirect cost savings that arise both from technology and business teams, and that also helps continue to align priorities and timelines, which is critically important. Now, one of the other things you see here is extensibility and security. A lot of this times it comes down to, well, it's already working, so why do we need to make any changes? We have, in our experience, we've come across that. We understand, but this is about being able to remain competitive in ever increasing, changing conditions around business models and markets and how people are consuming information and goods. And this really means that we've got to continue to really drive and innovate and find ways to increase the value of established products and services. And so that kind of, it's working, let's not touch it, honestly really needs to be thrown out the door because that's going to be limiting. Now, again, when we think about empowering, embracing, and how do you drive the cloud native mindset, it's going to be overcoming that. We'll talk about that briefly here later on. But again, that sort of mindset does need to change because now it's going to be focused on, again, pushing innovation, driving faster, and ultimately delivering increased results. So quick example of kind of bringing all of these three pieces together. So there was a large home improvement retailer. They were seeing pretty significant reduction in sales due to e-commerce retailers and the change in customer buying behavior. They were no longer going to large brick and mortar stores. They were purchasing more online, or they would go to the store and they would ask questions and look at the product and they would find it cheaper online, and then they would go and order that. And so the retailer looked at that and said, well, we know that we have better economies of scale and scope with their product offerings. They know that they had much better buying power to be able to compete, and also the logistics around being able to store products and delivery and inventory management and everything. And what they did is they found that their digital experience was lacking. And they found that what was happening is that to be able to really deliver a good quality experience, which they hadn't really been able to do, was taking at a minimum of about 6 weeks. So they implemented cloud native technologies, and they went from an average turnaround time of 6 weeks to 15 minutes. So they completely revamped the digital experience, and now they can make changes to that digital experience in a matter of 15 minutes, which means they can continuously improve it as they find things and as changes happen with consumers and how they're buying. They were also able to leverage that around some of the pricing and how they work with their suppliers and everything. It was taking way too long to implement price rule changes and everything, and they were able to move from doing that kind of manually a little bit at a time over a week or a 2-week period to being able to do those in 4 hours or less. So very clear kind of 2 examples of where the cloud native technology greatly reduced the time that it took to make changes and the impacted benefit that had from a business side of things. And the company was actually able to really regain a lot of sales because, again, consumers started to have a much better buying experience from their digital properties. So when we think about how do you do this, how do you fit the pieces together, the big part of this is, how do we build things? And there's 2 pieces to it. It's about having modular and open platforms. As you can see there, modularity is really around flexibility and scalability. And then we talk about open. And now open can mean a lot of things. It can mean open source, depending on what you need. The other part, though, is that this is really about how do you build and use open standards to build really your own ecosystem of platforms and tools and things like that. So this is about really building focused building blocks, if you will, and then taking those and making sure that you can have the different building blocks communicate with each other however they need over known standards, protocols, and whatever you may need. What this means is a couple of things. 1, you don't get locked into something that's proprietary. 2, known open standards means there's a large body of knowledge around it. It also means that there's other tools, systems, platforms that will implement that, which means that as you potentially add or remove technologies from what you need to be able to drive the business value, you can have those things now communicate very easily because they do it over a very standard way of communication. And that's going to be really important because over time, as you go through this, technology is going to change. You're going to use new platforms. You're going to choose platforms now, and maybe in 2 years you won't use them. And you need to be able to continually do that and adapt to the change necessary to be able to, again, leverage all of this and continue to drive the innovation. So another thing with being cloud native is that it's far more than a technology choice. Being cloud native means that you really have to align, things from the business side, technical teams, security, operations, and then there's also training. I think of training and upskilling. And all of these things have to work in concert with each other. And that's going to be critically important because what you do there is that you're then able to have what we like to call balance. And I think when I think of balance, the old adage of, the sum is greater than its parts, this couldn't be truer here. Because what you really want to do is get these different teams and everybody, again, we talked about those decision points and everybody that's involved, get all of those teams aligned and working in the same fashion, because everybody in those teams and all of those teams contribute to the overall business value, but it gets magnified as you get all of them aligned. And to do that, that really takes the commitment and everything that's required and the navigation from organizational leadership. And that's also really, really important because, again, going cloud native is not just a technology change. It is a strategic move, and it does necessitate other organizational changes. And so getting that alignment across the teams and that buy-in and everything from leadership is going to be critical to making sure that the journey is successful and that you get the maximized benefits of what cloud native provides from the business standpoint. So thinking through that, right, we've talked about a number of things. So, kind of thinking through a couple of other items here, which is what are the benefits and how do you prepare? Now, more than likely, you're going to need to have a little bit of an aggressive roadmap, if you will, because you need to start to make change. And there's ways to be aggressive that will result in the project being derailed, if you will. But there's also ways to have roadmaps that are very, very successful, even though they're aggressive. And it's about how do you manage a lot of these things? How do you manage the fear of unknown? And some of the things around change, which we've talked about. Well, this is the way we've always done it, or well, if it's working, why do we need to change? And I think the big thing there is thinking about that is how are we going to improve the customer experience? And to do that, what do we need to do to improve our speed of delivery? And when we do all of that, what's going to be the reduced business value risk? And again, what that means is, okay, we're going to move faster and everything, but we need to make sure that we do things to make sure that just because we're moving faster, we're not starting to reduce the quality of service to end customers, because that will have a big impact in perception of what's being delivered. Now, another piece of this is managing and preparing around the complexity. When you first start this journey, if you haven't already, there's going to be new operating models, especially around security and things like that, around data. And one of the big things is you're also, for some time, and this is different for everyone, is that you're going to have to really operate in two models. One is, how do you operate the new and the legacy in parallel? Because newer technologies using cloud native and everything, right, going to be moving faster. There's going to be different operational procedures and things that are done that are, sometimes 180 degrees different than when we think of from the traditional sort of legacy way things are done. So you really do have to manage all of those over time, because typically what you'll see is over time legacy shrinks and new grows, but you can't just flip a switch overnight for a lot of things. So that's going to be something that is very, very important to manage. Now, the other piece in this is enabling. Again, we talked about this, but how do you prepare for this change and make it easy? And there's a couple of things with that around training and upskilling. That's both for the business and the technical teams. Again, making sure that everybody is prepared for this, and that's a continuous change because things will continue to change. But educating everybody and making sure that they have the skill sets is going to be imperative, because that's going to allow individuals to move faster with these change, and also understanding and foresee the impact of these changes and how to do them quickly and efficiently. We talked about the aggressive roadmaps. That's going to be part of this change, and that's going to have to be managed, but it's going to be important to really break through the initial piece of starting this journey, because you're going to want to start to build upon success and be able to measure the outcomes and the value. As always, there's going to be a fear of change. So, again, with the training and everything, it's helping overcome that. To say that, this change and what we have to do to go through it is going to have far larger benefits than what we're doing currently. So really, you're kind of minimizing the effort required to make the change and making it look easy, so that, again, getting the buy-in and being able to navigate where you should make change. And then we talked about this is the way we've always done it. Obviously, that's always going to be a part of change and everything, and that's going to come up. And it's just going to be something to be aware of that really does need to be managed. So when we think about getting started, a couple of things, right? Everybody's going to have a very unique journey to what they need to do. Again, going back to the complexity, the change, how you have to manage things, what you need to do. That's going to be unique for everyone. As I mentioned, there is no one size fits all. That being said, when we're working with customers, what we have found, obviously, is change doesn't happen overnight, but there are four primary things that we always see that needs to be done. One is organizational. So how do you reorganize from being purely function focused and really center around business value, those services, and those capabilities. The next piece is enablement, right? So providing access to the tools, the platforms, the technologies, or training, whatever it may be, for the different teams, so that they can take advantage of what these changes provide and maximize the business value that's gained from them. The other part too, and we see honestly that a lot of times this is one of the more challenging things is, investing and implementing modern technologies, and being able to be proficient with that, to be able to gain the agility that those technologies need. We typically see around that, the architect and embracing that is because there's a lot of training and education that needs to go along with that, but also there has been investments that have been made in previous technologies. We're definitely not saying that there needs to be a rip and replace. It's much more surgical, and that's why we say everybody's journey is different. But it's how do we go in and understand where are the opportunities to start to move from something that is legacy into something that's new, and start to really embrace the modern technologies and architectures that go with that. And then the other key piece here is alignment. Again, this goes along with organization, but I think the big piece here is at the end of the day, you want everybody aligned so that however quickly the business can gather requirements or describe whatever they need, they can provide that to the IT side of things, and IT can move very quickly. And really it's how do you align everything to go from idea to production, or as I like to say, the end customers. How do you do that as quickly as possible, and continue to do that over and over again, in a repeatable fashion. So a couple of things we've talked about today, right? We talked about what is being cloud native mean, why is it driving in this innovation, what are the intended benefits from all of that. And so it's really, again, about unlocking value for organizations and why that change is so impactful. We discussed that what's really required of an organization to adopt being cloud native. How do we go from the current culture? What's the mindset that's needed? The buy-in of leadership and the support from leadership and the navigation from leadership, all the way down to what are going to be some of the technology choices that may need to be made? What are some of those investments and some of the architectural choices that go with it? Again, how do we go from that large spend in keeping the lights on and reducing the overall operating costs there, and reinvest that into, again, the training, the upskilling, and other things, with the goal of being able to choose technologies and methodologies that will help drive a business forward. And then, we talked lastly about how do we get started? How do you prepare? Again, not one size fits all. Everybody's journey is going to be different based on their needs, and that's going to be a critical part of your journey, is determining how do you go about this journey? How do you plan for things, and what are you going to do, especially if you, again, go back to where I mentioned that you might have two different operating models from a technology standpoint, right? Your legacy and now the new, and what's that going to look like? Every customer that we've worked with, they have had a different journey because of what they're trying to unlock and how they're currently organized and their technologies and things like that. And we've got to build upon where they're currently at and take that and move them based on that. That's really what drives what this journey is going to look like. So, really the question is how can Accelino help? At the end of the day, what we do is we work to really help build a strategy. If you already have one, we look at that and say, okay, how can we help you implement this? And how do we help you do it faster? How do we help your teams align sooner? How do you help embrace that cloud native cultural shift, that mindset? How do we do that very quickly so that you can start to reap the benefits sooner, which means you get greater value out of the shift? And so we're very, very collaborative in working with our customers, our technology partners, and being able to really help find the right solution that works for customers, and again, doing that very, very quickly. And what we do is we're not just about building a strategy and then doing the implementation. We're very hands-on with our customers. What we do is we take our mentoring model, and we are going to sit and impart our knowledge with all of our customers, because you're going to start this journey, you're going to be going through that. We're here as a partner to help you do that. But we aren't doing it for you. We want your teams to be able to do it. So we really take our mentoring model and really, again, impart our knowledge and experience to help prepare your teams for self-sufficiency and really the long-term success. And we've done this with a lot of different technologies across a lot of the new different cloud providers, and the methodologies there: public, private, hybrid, or multi-cloud. And what we've been able to do is not only help in this journey, but unlock capabilities for customers to begin to use things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, higher levels of automation that lead into things like AI ops and business process automation, and everything that really goes with that. And again, working with customers to really and truly drive down that cost per performance unit while driving new value and increasing the quality of the service provided to end customers. So again, really appreciate everybody's time here today. We look forward to hearing from you and how we can help you with your cloud native transformation, your journey, whether you're looking to get started or if you've already started but need help accelerating things. We're definitely here to help you do that with our expertise. So again, we look forward to hearing from all of you, and we really appreciate you joining today.